Order roll call. We'll move to approval of the minutes from October 24th. Is there a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Edits, comments? Mr. Humbert?
One question. When we approved the, what can we call it, the guidelines that we sent forward to the city council, they have since approved. We made a lot of changes. You talked about it in the minutes. We've never really seen the changes, or there's no concise copy of what we did. So I think it'd be helpful just to have that the way it was submitted, or just have it entered in the minutes how it was submitted, because you talk about it in the body of the minutes, but we don't really say these were the changes.
Okay. So edit the minutes with a little bit more detail.
I think so, on what the exact changes were. So I guess the very specific changes were these.
Do you want to table this then until we come back?
I'd love that.
Is that a motion you just made? All right. There is no discussion on table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to appearances. Is there anyone here who wishes to appear on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to unfinished business 5A. And we have guests here this evening, so to be respectful of their time, they've waited long enough. I'm going to move that to after 6. So we'll move to new business, which is 6A. Consideration of action on request by Grant Signs on behalf of property owner Tehran LLC for approval of a landscape ground sign permit for the property at 950 East Broadway, the Broadway Car Wash. Good evening.
Switch to the document camera, please.
Good evening. We are proposing a ground sign. Okay. Oh, sorry.
They don't let you touch those buttons.
Here we go. We are proposing a ground sign with a 5-foot height and 9-foot width of a ground sign in the existing planter bed. We'll also be planting one Wisconsin juniper on each side of the sign base. This sign will also list touchless car wash as well as coin laundry.
The proposed sign meets the minimum standards in the code for height, square footage, and setback from the curb. I also had comments in the staff report about whether or not the proposed sign meets the evaluation factors listed in the code, specifically the item which asks for the sign to be compatible with the building characteristics and architecture. So I asked that the Plan Commission discuss if it's reflective of the building architecture and design. And finally, a landscape ground sign typically will designate the name of a project or a building. In this case, the ground sign is only listing one tenant in a multi-tenant building, so I've noted that if this were approved, it's the only ground sign that would be able to be approved for the entire property. That's all I have.
And it is the owner of the property that's requesting this signage, correct? Okay, thank you. Commission members, discussion? Mr. Humbert?
Question. It says that I don't see it now, but that the base is painted, color is shown, and it looks translucent.
Yes, we have decided to go with just a plain white color for the building base and the cabinet.
Okay. It would seem that matching something that's on the building might tie that into the building a little bit.
We decided to go with white. We thought it was a sleek design. It brings out the colors of the landscaping. Do you have any comments?
It's pretty much next to the middle of the building. It does not stick out. It just mingles pretty good. It's
and then Kathy.
I would agree wholeheartedly. Tie in with a tan of the building would make more sense. To just give it some relationship to the building would make sense, or an angle to it to kind of mimic the roof lines. Well, at the very least, I think that's a color happy issue.
Changing the color.
Sure, I would agree.
Kathy?
Is Coin Laundry the name of the laundry, or is it just saying just saying that there's Coin Laundry there?
That's the name of the,
Hey, and,
it's called the point then.
and I don't know what a restriction is, but, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but the combination, there seems to be no consistency between the Coin Laundry and the touchless car wash. And it looks, I don't want to say bloody, but it does. I mean, you have a very nice building, you have beautiful landscaping. And I don't think the sign is consistent with the aesthetics of the rest of the development.
Well, there are two separate tenants as well. There's the car wash and then there's also the coin laundry. So they are separate. That's why we've defined them as two different colors.
But they're not complementary.
Okay.
I think they clash, but that's just my view of the world.
Any other comments from commissioners? Ryan?
To Kathy's point, having the two tenants on one sign, and I'm trying to think of other landscape ground signs that have multi-tenants within a building and how it's captured in either consistent format to match pieces with the building or in other types of formats. So I agree the sign pops and catches your eye and all of those pieces that I think have some desirability in the sign. But meeting some of the other pieces that we're hoping for about how signs relate to buildings and some of the other discussion points that have been proposed here, balancing those two efforts together would be helpful and beneficial about what happens if one of those fade out of the replacement, and does it make sense for a multi-tenant to have one landscape ground sign without either a better description of this is the building and here are the tenants within the building, like many of the other landscape ground signs that we have, versus this orientation. I get it.
And the decision was also made by the building owner to list just these two tenants in the event that one of the tenants, or if they decide to sell one of the businesses, the sign can easily be changed. Any of the tenant panels can be switched out. It's just a retainer system. We can switch that out. We can always make simulated divider bars in there to add more tenants. These were the two tenants that were only listed on the sign for the business owner's reasons.
I kind of agree with the comments that have been made. I'd like to see more of the building in, one of the criteria is more harmonious with the building. The sign is clear, it does stand out, but it looks very separate right now with the colors that are there. If that's something that could be done.
And we can change the color of the cabinet and the base to reflect the beige light tan color. We can pull that color in.
Probably helps.
Well, I agree with the comments so far, and just looking at the picture, the building in the background seems to at least to have some continuity across it, and the two signs on the building are both in red and have some relation to each other. But it seems to me that the landscape ground sign should reflect the color of the base should reflect the color of the building, and that there should be a greater similarity between the two halves.
I would say that, like I stated before, I think the color of the base is a reasonable thing to change, but how the two tenants want to brand themselves, I think that's kind of out of our hands to some degree. Why one business should relate to the next business, I don't think they should. I think asking them to, they shouldn't have to, I think asking them to incorporate the base of the sign and the structure of the sign into the building is a reasonable request.
So if I remember right, this property has a unified sign plan, a signage plan for the building itself. And did that signage plan incorporate any recommendation or agreement about future landscape ground signs, directional signs in those pieces?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. I'll have to go back and look at the signage plan.
Because if I remember, there was another tenant, if it was in this building, I believe, that was looking at having a different sign on the building. And we reinforced the sign plan that was agreed to at the original building of the building. And so I'm wondering if that has some relation to the landscape ground sign that might help provide some clarity.
What's your timing?
What's your time? We'd be looking at installation of mid-January.
So there's not a meeting this month, right?
Correct. January 12th is the next meeting. January 9th, actually.
January 9th would be our next meeting. And what's been brought up is if the original plan addressed the sign, we don't have that information available to us tonight. So, commission members, we can act on the request. We can table until we get that information. What would you like to do?
I don't quite understand what's in the question, or what's the potential impacts of this comprehensive sign?
The question I have is if the original sign, the approval for the original sign package that was on the building, if that also referenced other signs on the property, including directional or landscape ground signs, because there was a request in the last year or 2 years regarding another tenant in this building, and we reinforced the original signage plan that indicated that it needed to be red letters on the building and consistency.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, because we don't have it tonight, if that same signage plan talked about other pieces.
So, what would you like to do, Ms.?
I'd like to table it until we have that information, unless someone has an alternative perspective or thought.
So the city do not have that information?
Not tonight. They have it, yes, but it's not here tonight. Kathy raised your hand first.
Well, I just had a question. In regards to each of the two signs, are those logos of the signs, are they sign designs that the sign company did?
We created the logos and the colors for the tenant.
Okay.
Mr. Amber? I was just curious, Mr. Gansler's back, and he is our sign expert. I'd like to hear his thoughts on the sign.
It appears to fit, I have 3 comments. One is it appears to fit within the ordinance. I'm concerned about when the insurance agent wants to put a ground sign out there, what happens. And with all due respect, aesthetically, I don't believe it adds anything to Broadway.
The comment you were out that the owner's here tonight, and that since this the owner's making the request, whatever other neighboring tenant would have a request, they wouldn't be able to, because this is their one sign. But to Brian, what Brian brings up, there was a plan approved, a signage package approved for this property.
Sure.
And we don't have that information with us tonight. So there was a motion to table. If there isn't a second, we'll move on. Is there a second? There's been a motion to table and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Can we count that, please? There was no opposed, right? But were there enough yeses to approve that? Can we count it, please?
What, enough yeses to what?
Well, I heard a couple of yeses, but I don't know if it was enough. If you don't have, I suppose there were no no's, so if somebody chose not to.
No, no.
There were no no's, so if you chose not to vote, the yeses win. So I guess it's tabled. So what'll happen then, Sonia, with this, now that it's tabled?
I'll work with you and get you the comments summarized and check the signage plan, and we'll get an application submitted for the January 9th meeting.
And we'll have the information for the whole package, or with our package for the night.
One
Further questions? Yes, sir.
Is there any way this is going to be handled with like a conditional approval?
Not
based on
anymore,
that?
unless we bring it up to the table.
Okay. That's it.
You could bring it off the table.
Oh, just asking the question, if potentially could there be a conditional approval, assuming that this all works with the original sign package, and everybody's okay with the sign, could this be handled in-house?
So
They don't have to come back?
The base were changed.
And we'll change the base color.
Yeah. So they don't have to come back.
No.
Why?
Well, I'll move to remove it from the table so we can talk about it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's better, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The reason is, if I listen to the comments, I think in general, people are not pleased with the signage, that it is the quality is inconsistent. If there's something, if it was a corporate logo, I could understand that would be important. But if there's something that could be done to make the two signs a little consistent, and I don't say that just because I said that, I saw people nodding all over that are less than enthusiastic about these signs setting out in the middle of Broadway. So that's why I think that, I certainly wouldn't support a conditional approval.
Well, if I'm an applicant, what I heard tonight is sign color, tie it to the building so it looks like it's part of the building. What else am I hearing from the commission tonight? What specifically is it? And
There are, I don't know, on one sign it's at an angle, the other it's straight. There's different colors, different fonts. It's, and if it's not a logo, why wouldn't we try and make it more consistent?
Well, there's still two different businesses.
Well, I understand that.
So please let me understand why they need to be similar. And
So they don't clash. That's just I have to tell you, for a long time I've sat on this committee, and I want to kick myself for saying this, that we get into color and we get into all kinds of things about signage, and I think that sometimes we're too restrictive. But that sign sits out in Broadway. There is nothing consistent about it. There is no other sign in town that I know where we've had two signs that are so inconsistent. Just one's at an angle, one's straight. Why? You could have one yellow and one red and have them the same and have the same font and maybe have two colors, but you got two colors on one sign and one color another one. I defer to the expert on it who knows signs better than I do, but I don't. You've done such a nice job of landscaping. The building is so attractive. It looks so nice. It is a real compliment I think, for the businesses as you go down the drive. I don't think the signs add to it. That's a personal aesthetic opinion, which I never say in here, but I do about this one because it is so different. And it isn't a logo. It isn't like, we had this discussion when we had Buffalo Wild Wings about what we would let and colors we would let. But we try and have consistency. I can't think of a place in town where we have two signs for two different businesses on the same property that are so different as that one. And I don't think I'm the only one who feels that way.
I think whether people know it or not, but I think what they're seeing from the design is what appears to be a temporary sign. The colors, the fonts, the lack of a business name suggest that this Saturday we got a car wash going. They have a very temporary graphic flavor about them. On sale now, open late tonight, touchless car wash. All right, there's no sense of permanence to the graphics. And so I think that's, probably what we're responding to. And if you're being challenged without a business name, that's difficult as a designer, to be sure. That the only message we want out here is that it's a touchless car wash is difficult. To give that a sense of permanence, and a quality aesthetic to it, that's challenging. But I think that's what we're feeling up here. They have a very temporary look to them.
Sonia, the new regulations regarding sign and what can be placed on a sign, how would that relate to what we're dealing with tonight?
I think the comments here are fine because they're not regarding the content of the sign. We're not telling them that they can't write coin laundry or touchless car wash. I think the aesthetics can be regulated.
But the content, as far as what they say, is something that can't be regulated.
Mm-hmm.
So that is...
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
And that's my point. That makes it very challenging. As soon as it's Jim's touchless car wash and there's a graphic or a logo associated with that, it makes it a lot easier to design, don't you think?
Yes,
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yeah.
On the building, there's only laundry and car wash,
Right.
small signs. So that's why it's difficult, and you try to incorporate it into the sign design. You try to pull colors that will catch people's attention, and laundry is a difficult color to kind of choose, but when you have car washes that I've done in the past are typically always red and blue. Those are the two colors that you go off of. So we did throw in the red, white, and blue colors. What colors do you think are suggesting then? If we change the color to a base of a beige color to kind of incorporate the building colors, then what color would you like to see on the tenant panels to go along with the beige?
I don't know if it's our job to design it for you, but it's to
Contact me
react.
during the day. I can deal with that, but that's not here.
But it's to react to what's been presented and to share those comments with you. But it's not our job to actually
I have a
design it.
suggestion.
Yes, that'd be great.
One consideration is to look at other landscape ground signs that we have in the area and how not only the sign is tied into the building and the architecture of the building, but how they've been able to pull multi-tenant signage onto that sign that allows some of the same principles. So maybe rather than side by side of distinguish, maybe the panels go in a different way and they aren't so different in color and orientation and font and graphic, but very similar. And this is similar as the building is very similar and how it's consistent across the building. Could be one way.
Okay.
Chris?
Well, the colors on the building are, as I look at it, beige,
Here's a
blue, red, and the outside light yellow. It seems to me if you utilize those basic colors, make some effort to make the two fonts consistent, and put in a beige base, that would sufficiently relate it to the architecture of the building that it would remove all the problem. However, using the colors of the building, the gray, the blue, the red, even the yellow, the light yellow, make the fonts consistent and have the base a tan, that integrates it with the building and integrates it with the style of the signs on the building. That's what I think would be appropriate.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Umber?
I disagree with a lot of comments. I think the sign, the way it is now, looks a little temporary. It doesn't have the permanence that your building deserves. If you look at our landscape ground signs in Monona, they're very consistent. We've allowed variation on wall signs more than landscape ground signs, where we've asked the tenants to all put in the same color panel and everything, so you have some type of a consistent sign that looks like it's permanent and belongs to one building, even though it's different tenants. It looks like an overview of the building. If you choose to change tenants, you might want to advertise Tower Inn in the future or something different like that. But if you look across the road down Monona Drive, they're all very, I don't want to say homogeneous, but they're very measured on the ground signs, on the landscape ground signs. And we've actually allowed a lot more variance in the building signs, the ones up actually on the building if you want a little variance. We've done more of that than we have on the landscape ground signs. Those have been very consistent. I think that's what everybody's seeing. Everybody wants to approve it, but it's just, it's not consistent with the signage that you'll see up and down Broadway, for one, or Monona Drive.
Rob?
Yeah. Has there been a lot of precedent with changing the content and the logo and the design of the content of the sign? I know with the martial arts studio, there were some readability issues. That's clearly not the case here. In my opinion, it's not the sexiest sign in the world, and I would personally make some changes, but it falls within the parameters almost. I think adding some color would help match it. But is it our job to redesign the content and the logo, and no matter what we think of it?
If we think it's.
That's not our job, I don't think.
If we think.
'Cause if
it
it's-
is- if
it just-
it's inconsistent, it is.
Inconsistent with,
Other signage?
what do you mean?
Well-
What other signage?
On Broadway, when you have two signs, it's just difference of opinion.
Fair enough.
Sonia points out on this sheet that we've got, applicable regulations, policy, and practice number 2. Compatibility with the building characteristics, adjacent uses, and adjacent signs. And one thing we don't know is what do adjacent signs in this area look like? Susan?
Well, I guess that was the piece I was focusing on, was more the compatibility with the building characteristics and the fact that the sign just looks jarring to me. And if we're not supposed to comment on color, I think it's the goldish color. It's just so bright. And it makes it look very different from the building. If we could, if you, when you do add the beige base and this, and maybe if that were softer or something, I don't even know that the angle bothers me that much. It just doesn't look like it goes with the building to me. I mean, that's, I guess, so you can do something with it to make it still stand out. It certainly does stand out. And I don't have a problem with the side-to-side thing. I mean, I think that it does stand out that it's two separate businesses in there. And I don't know if that's helpful or.
Any other comments? So we've come up with, I guess, some more feedback. And do we want to vote on it tonight, or do we want to table again and allow the applicants to come back and absorb what we've discussed?
I move to table for the purposes already stated.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, hopefully that helps. Thank you for your patience, but we all want something that's going to be successful for you and also meet the guidelines. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to 6B, public hearing on request by Phil Troya, PDQ Food Stores, Inc., represented by Daniel Bertler of Supreme Structures, Inc., for a zoning permit, site plans, building elevations for redevelopment of the sites at 105 East Broadway, 6400 Monona Drive, for a new PDQ convenience store, 2-bay car wash, and gas canopy with 10 fueling dispensers. Mr. Homburg. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good.
Gotta help me out here. Is that there?
He's the one that's gonna help you out.
I'm abstaining. Yeah, show me what I'm doing here, Sonny. Okay, got it? Perfect. Perfect. Good evening, my name is Dan Bertler with Supreme Structures on behalf of PDQ Food Stores. I'm a general contractor, been in business for 24 years and have been doing PDQ's work for those 24 years. The site in question tonight that we would like to discuss is 6400 Monona Drive. The current store has been there longer than I can remember, and so it's been there more than 24 years. Also with me tonight is Patty, the District General Manager of PDQ Food Stores. She can talk about anything specific if needed, as well as my architect, Peter, with Angus Young Architects. So what I have on the plan tonight is general site layout plan, and there's a reason why everything is placed accordingly on that site plan, and we just didn't throw it on a site. The first thing, to demolish a building and start fresh on a site, we'd be looking at a 4 to 5 month demolition to start, and by the time PDQ would get back in operation, it would be a 4 to 5 months to reorientate a brand new site start to finish. And there's just no way PDQ ever looks at demolishing an entire building, take it out of commission, let's say, just due to the fact customers, you lose them, and it's really, really difficult to get back. So we're looking at this site as a 2-phase project. The first phase is actually to leave the existing PDQ in operation, and the canopy is in the same placement as that canopy. It's just turned the opposite way. What we would do is construct a new 6,000 square foot, ground up, brand new PDQ convenience stores. And I say a convenience stores, currently the one there is a convenience store, but it's not our new prototype. Currently, new prototype is a 6,000 square foot store. Currently there, we're probably about 3,000, 3,200 square foot. But inside the store, we have a full made-to-order deli program. We have made-to-order sandwiches. We have wine, bakery, natural foods. It's basically a small grocery store with fueling dispensers. We're looking at a 24-hour store. We're going to increase employment, probably double the employment as it sits right now. PDQ also hires everyone within the neighborhood, as well as phenomenal benefits. So I just want to bring that up because PDQ's been in business for over 60 years and they're an employee-owned company. Does everyone have a good idea on the site plan of how it lays out? So after the store is constructed, it does have a 2-bay car wash, and I'll talk about that real quick too. Once the store and construction and the car wash are constructed, we then would remove the existing canopy, the existing store, and rebuild the new gas canopy. That downtime is maybe 4 weeks. So we're out a month out of commission. However, we're still having the open deli, the coffee program, and everything else going in business. So we're really trying to stay open as long as we can. That said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the car wash. I knew if this was a virgin site and I put a car wash right in the corner, you would have said absolutely not. I recognize there's people behind us. I recognize there's a commercial district to the north of us as well as Monona Drive. Looking at the overall site plan, we feel that we've done a due diligence placement of that car wash and recognizing the existing neighbors as well as with the car wash. You can't really see it on this plan, but I'll get a little further. But we've taken into consideration a wing wall on the right-hand side, which would be next to the condos. That wing wall protrudes all the way past, and as well as overhanging a roof of 15 to 20 feet beyond the dryers. So it probably doesn't mean a lot to everyone here tonight, but I can tell you, without any parameters, without the wing wall, without the additional roof, without scrubbers or screens on the blower assembly itself, at 50 feet, we would be at about 70 to 75 decibels. And just give you an idea what that is, it's like an alarm clock. I think if I look online, 70, 75 decibels, it's an alarm clock or a vacuum cleaner. I also had a meeting with, help me out, Lorraine, current owner next door. I sat with her last Friday, went through the entire site plan with her, and she said she absolutely loves the improvement. The car wash does not bother her. And we also would like to show you on another site plan here. Maybe the landscape plan will show it the best. All right. Okay, landscape plan. Where her building sits, I stopped the curb and gutter, and we're also allowing her access to our property to behind her property if she needs it. Pardon me? I'm sorry. Her property would be right there, and right there is an entrance that if so be if she needs to park a car behind her building, it's available for her.
And that's
Yeah.
a change from what was.
That is a change, correct. Yep. I apologize. The other thing that we did, I didn't realize I can actually draw on this. We actually cut this road, the property between her building and the car wash, all the way down. We shrunk that down to about 24 feet, I believe, which allowed us additional green space. I think we were about 25%. And by doing that, our green space actually increased as well. Thank you. So landscape, PDQ, they went beyond on the landscape plan here. It looks amazing. I'm not quite sure if you'll have many issues with it, but we also sod and we put full irrigation systems in all our new stores. So recap, that's the rhyme or reason why the site is laid out, the reason it's laid out. I can talk about lighting real quick. We do not have any exterior lighting in your packet. We will at the next meeting. I will tell you that all the new stores with technology right now, we're all recessed LED lighting on the canopy. What that means is it will be a light glow underneath the canopy. The car will enter the canopy, get gas. That light will automatically come to a certain light level. Once a car leaves, the light goes back down. So we have no light pollution whatsoever. We've looked at decibels, placement in the car wash for noise. We extended the roof. We added the screen. We added a ton of landscaping, additional buffer between Lorraine's place of business to add a little bit more impact to it. Trying to give you the quick overview because I know everyone's been here very late. Architectural. I have to get the beautiful sign in there that I'm sure everyone's going to say, we love it, but it doesn't fit our sign ordinance. I've already heard. Now, this to me is a sign. We're going to have to work on the sign. I've went through the staff comments. It doesn't appear the size fits, so we'll continue to work on the sign, but we acknowledge that your current sign board is in violation. We do want to work with the city of Monona as for placement of that sign, so it's a benefit for everyone coming down Monona Drive as well as city of Monona. This building, we incorporated much of the stone that you see on Monona Drive. It is a flat roof, and then we pitched and kind of whip through these here a little bit. This will be walking from the gas canopy to the store. This is Monona Drive side. And the corner from Monona Drive looking southeast. As you can see, the car wash, the roof that you see on top of the car wash right here, that's a complement the roof that we have on our tower. And the reason we have a flat roof on the main building, shouldn't say the main building, but that's a parapeted roof where all our rooftop units are hid and screened within that flat roof portion. And right here is where we have a column. You can see the wing wall right here that we extended another 15 feet beyond the car wash. So my dryers are actually set back, recessed. The other thing I'm going to tell you too is the doors in operation. Once a car enters a car wash, they're high-speed doors. They go right back down. So we've really we've been doing a lot of convenience stores. We know what works as for technology, what we hit, what we're confronted with on every municipality. So we've really learned throughout the years, and hence we feel that we put the best package together tonight and open for suggestions. Want to talk anything specific architectural? Peter's here, and anything operationally, Patty's here. Is that enough? Good enough overview?
You just want to hang there for...
You bet.
And we'll move on to 6C, which is the pre-hearing conference on the request. Sonia?
This is a pre-hearing conference on a zoning permit, site plans, and building elevations for the redevelopment of both sites. I have listed points of discussion for Plan Commission, the first being the proposed use. The site, one of the properties is currently occupied by a gas station and convenience store, so this would be a continuation of that use. The addition is the new car wash, and Dan provided a lot of information on what they have proposed in order to mitigate potential issues such as noise, the traffic, and visual impacts. And I just wanted to note, too, that just like all proposals, a public hearing notice was mailed to properties within 300 feet, including the owners of the condominiums, before this was scheduled here tonight. The next section, building design, I included in the staff report comments about the East Broadway design guidelines and the Monona Drive urban design guidelines, which ask for things like the masonry and pitched roofs. One of the comments was regarding the flat roof on most of the convenience store. So the Plan Commission can discuss whether the parapet is acceptable to screen the rooftop mechanicals, or in other locations such as the Qdoba and Red Robin, there's a pitched roof with some sort of slat in the top that also screens rooftop mechanicals. Site design, I have outlined 30% is the target that we try to hit for green space. They've hit 24%, but that's a huge increase over the existing 5% green space. And that is for both sites combined, 5%.
I think once you see the new plan that we sent,
might increase a little bit.
Increased it.
Okay. Parking, I've noted that there are 12 stalls more than the minimum. It may be 10 to 12. I think there were also some minor revisions on the parking plan. Access and auto circulation, you can touch on that in general, but additional information will be reviewed by our civil engineer when he does his auto turn analysis. Pedestrian and bicycle access and circulation, bike parking is provided at the south end of the building. 4 slots for bicycles. A pedestrian walkway is provided from the Monona Drive sidewalk to the building, but I've noted that it's not provided. So there would be on the Broadway side, so there would be nothing to guide pedestrians from Broadway through the gas canopy area and car wash into the building. Enclosures are required and screening for the trash receptacles, and it appears that's provided on the north end of the building, but details on the screening material has not been provided, so that should be noted for future meetings. Landscaping, not a lot of detail was included on the plan that you received in your packets, but I emailed out information earlier today that I received, and I guess the takeaway from my quick review of it was that they are required to have 750 landscape points, and they are providing 1,279, so they're exceeding the minimum. And canopy trees required is 4, and they're providing 9. On the lighting, again, no detail provided, but Dan gave some information on that. Signage, information was included in your packet about the issues that were also previously discussed here at Plan Commission about the encroaching message board sign and wall structures in the DOT right-of-way, and the issues that we have with changing that. The DOT is prohibiting us from making any alterations to it that would make it more functional. And we also cannot purchase the right-of-way from the DOT at this time because it's part of the Beltline study, and I believe it will be part of that for many years to come. So part of PDQ's work on this was to show it on their property and come up with some sort of creative solution. This is definitely a concept at this point, open for Plan Commission discussion, whether it can be some sort of community entrance sign with a landscape ground sign element providing signage for PDQ, and that can change to be something that's more in compliant with the sign code for the signage portion for PDQ. It's open for discussion and comment at this point. Department head comments were included in the staff report, and civil engineering review will be completed for a future meeting, and conversations have already been happening with the applicant's engineer and Darren Pope at Veerbecker.
Real quick, as for the architectural, you made a comment, Sonia, in reference to the architecture. Someone talk real quick about that. Looking at the surrounding communities, or surrounding building, the condo is a flat roof right behind us. Across the street, we've got a pitch roof. So what we tried to do was really marry up between everything that's out there. So I didn't want to be the exact same pitch roof, same everything that's out there. So that's really what drove the architecture this way.
Why don't we start? Kathy, I'm going to pick on you, and we'll just go around the horn with your comments for the applicant, please.
Well, actually, I think this, including the city sign, is a wonderful idea. Would, in an ideal world, if we had developers beating us down trying to locate buildings, would this be in terms of use, be my first choice? I'm not sure it would, but it's a heck of a lot better than what's on that existing parcel next door now. I think that...
And we're not going to go anywhere either.
Yeah, well, I think that they have gone out of their way to meet the design standards, that they are, there's green space, there's great landscaping, there's nice building materials. I'm not wild about a car wash, but if you can't tell it's a car wash, I guess it's okay. If the use is acceptable, I think it's as good as it's going to get from an aesthetic, for me, from an aesthetic standpoint.
I would say it's exciting. I think overall, I love the concept of what you've shown. The amount of landscape and green space, I think, is a great improvement. Did have one question here. The car wash, what are the hours for that? Is that
what we've found in other municipalities is Ironically enough, on East Washington, they wanted our hours to be 7 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, and Plan Commission vetoed that and said that's crazy, and I believe we're 6 in the morning till 11 or 12 at night because it's commercial district. We typically, I would have to say,
Our other stores are 24 hours.
are 24 hours.
Road, Milwaukee Street. Fleet Road does close at midnight, but they close at midnight. Middle Pino Road stays open.
Could I ask, since it's being recorded, and there are a dozen of people out there who are watching this, if you could come up and talk into the mic, it'd be appreciated. And when you're describing that, are there, if you could compare it to, because this is next to some residential product, so what, do you have other car washes that are near?
Lean Road is, it's by a lot of residential. That does close at midnight though when the store closes. But our store on Buckeye Road, Milwaukee Street, Mineral Point Road, Fish Hatchery. Is that it?
Yeah.
They all stay open 24 hours. But I would say Buckeye's by, they have the apartments behind them too. The only issues has been, they asked us to turn down, I think, the dryer. And we've done that, and we haven't had complaints again.
Do you get much use after midnight?
Not a lot. And you get occasional, but
So what are you going to be requesting as far as hours here? Or
did we talk?
do you want to come back?
Honestly,
with
what we've done, no different than requesting a 24-hour store, and it's always conditional use. Whether or not we're open 24 hours, it's really operationally doesn't make sense. Would we love to have an opportunity to do a 24-hour car wash? Absolutely. Doesn't make sense if we're not getting any use, or if we need to be a friend of the neighborhood versus be an enemy to the neighborhood. So if we're having an issue with people at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock because of noise on the car wash, that's our customer. So then we would minimize that time. If that answers your question. So we're here tonight conceptually, love to have a 24-hour store. You have the right to minimize the hours of operation.
Just in regards to the site plan, I just had a couple comments. You talked about that wing wall to kind of reduce noise. What about the other entrance, or the main entrance there? Is there a reason that the same efforts weren't made on that side,
No, really,
stretching south?
it's a single, there are 2 bay car washes. The bay itself is 50 feet long, but those doors are high-speed doors. So once the car enters, the door's down in 2.8 seconds.
Okay.
So literally to do the expense, I'd rather put the expense in the actual landscaping to make it look presentable versus a concrete block wall. But
I was just thinking of the residents.
right.
And maybe someone can, I don't know what the west elevation of that condominium is, if there's a lot of residential windows. Does anybody know?
Currently, it shares a wall
It shares a wall.
with the Blue Roof building.
Yep.
So there are no windows.
Okay. Like I said, I think the landscaping is great. I love the little seating area. My comment to that would be a planting area would be great there, but planters might actually be better if they're maintained better, just because I think of all the high salt and the traffic, and it might just end up being a dirt bed. Maybe not, but just consideration. And then the sidewalks along the west and the south end, I think you show at the narrower portions 5.5 feet. Do you know how skinny that gets on that narrowest point where that kind of corner jump bumps out? The reason I ask is that 5.5 feet I think is okay, but when you got bumper overhangs 18 inches, is you.
Okay. Yep. This one actually, yeah, the latest site plan actually bumped that to be a little bit larger. I apologize. What happened is we submitted the plans, we knew we were coming tonight, so we looked at and made some adjustments. Couple adjustments we did make, just so you know, besides the green space between us and them, we also increased our stalls from 9 foot to 10 foot because it is a convenience store. We want people to get in. The other one we did is in the south side of the building. We are actually 9.5 feet in the front, I believe. You remember, Peter? I think we're 9.5 feet in the front.
Okay.
So the new plans that you can see at the next meeting would show a larger sidewalk.
Okay.
9.5 is the sidewalk width.
Correct,
And
9.5
12
feet.
are 10.
Yes, yep. And then it does get reduced, Sonia. It's 9.5, and then we got the jog in the building, so it would go down to like 8.5 at that point.
That's plenty. And then employee parking would be the northeast corner, I'm assuming.
Correct.
It said southeast in the report.
So in the back here
Yeah.
is where we're envisioning employee parking.
Okay. And is that grass swale between the condo building and the car wash, is that for employee circulation, or is that, or that
Sorry, yeah.
unlandscaped area? Yeah.
Really, it's going to be part of our site work, detention, and water control
Okay.
because of the grades on the current site and going back to that drive.
Okay. I think that's all I have right now.
Rick, we're gonna start with you and come back.
And with Alder Holmquist.
I don't see any problem with the uses either. I think the proposed use of the sections is definitely an improvement over what existed before. And it seems to me that the car wash, if the owners are flexible about the hours of use to some extent, and that without going out and looking at the immediate surroundings, I'm not too sure how much of an issue that would be, but I don't think there's any insurmountable issues about it. I like the landscaping. I like the proposal that we could eventually work something with a community sign. I'm a little undecided as to whether or not I think the flat roof is preferable over a pitched roof on the main part of it, but there is enough variation at present so that I think it probably would be adequate. All in all, I think it would fit in with our plans for the area.
I like it too. I mean, I think the variation in the roof works and makes the flat part seem okay when you look at it. And I really like the green space. Really love that you're going to you can incorporate our city sign. I think that's huge. This is nice looking the way you have it, but if we can do some variation of that fits the ordinance, that'd be great. But the only concern I had from the beginning really was the car wash being open 24 hours and the potential noise and light and that kind of thing, cars driving in and out. But as Griff said, if it's not a problem, if you have one or two every now and then and nobody complains about it, it's fine. I guess I would like to know that if it does become an issue,
Right.
you would deal with it. But otherwise, I think it looks good. I like it.
Andrew.
Oh, boy.
Put your microphone down so they can hear you.
Push mine up.
I think it's important for me to preface my comments with the fact that I stop at this PDQ and the one at Southtown 7 days a week, period.
Thank you.
I fuel my car 100% at those PDQs when I'm buying local gas. And I'm live in the adjoining neighborhood. That said, I think this is kind of ironic that this project is being proposed following the meeting we had previous to this with the university speaking about new urbanism and mixed-use development and the type of things that Monona needs to look towards to be successful, to draw on the new generations, to cater to our seniors. I think everybody here would agree that this is a gateway property to Monona. It's literally what I believe to be the entrance to Monona off the Beltline on Monona Drive. And to take, I've heard several people mention that this proposal is an improvement to what's there. Well, I think that's pretty obvious. But I think what we need to be looking at is what could be there, what could represent the gateway to Monona. And to take a single-use property and a multi-use property, put them together, an acre and a half at the entrance to Monona for a single-story, single-use convenience center is as poor use for that property as that I can possibly imagine. And I'm trying to be as respectful as I can. There's no bigger PDQ fan around than me. I live at the places. But if this community is looking to go forward with redevelopment, an acre and a half for a single-use property, in my belief, is the poster child of what not to do.
Can I also comment?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I greatly appreciate your comments, and I greatly appreciate you're a phenomenal customer. We feel that the reason we're investing in this corner is exactly what you said, for the millennials, for the generations, the next generation. And I say that is because you look at how many live in apartments, how many are buying small condos. And if you look at the people that are working outside Madison, outside Monona, they want us to come in and they want to get fresh bakery, fresh donuts, fresh coffee, whatever it is, the staples they need. It's easy. They can get gas, they can get a car wash, they can get everything they need, and they can go back to where they got to go. So we feel, and your comment's justified, but as PDQ feels that we need to invest in the future the same as this. Hence, that's why we're producing a 6,000 square foot convenience store with all the amenities that the millennials are looking for.
I think you're right on with that. I think the model of the look into the future is absolutely correct. The response I have to that is that we need to develop that residential and mixed-use base to support this kind of store. I also feel that with the going from 4 pumps to 10 and putting in a 2-bay car wash, I feel like this feels more like an interstate truck stop than it does to support the residents of Monona. I really don't. I really can't come up with anything this brings to the community of Monona, in addition to what's already there.
Well, no,
I mean, a 2-bay car wash, on Monona Drive, it's like as we look to redevelop and increase property values with our commercial on Monona Drive, I don't feel that this plays into that at all.
6.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just,
Go ahead.
Currently, I believe we have 6 pumps and we're going to 10. No different than Monona Drive, going from a single lane to a 2-lane. More people, more traffic, hence more pumps. The current layout with the pumps at the current site, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. If we do not get what we're basically looking at tonight, The downside of it is nothing happens. So PDQ is not going to sell. They approached me to remodel a store, and I said, why would you want to remodel a store that's 30, 40 years old, that mechanically is terrible conditions? The mechanical side of things are terrible. We have no space to expand, and it's time to do a new store. So that's when PDQ directed us to, all right, let's go ahead and plan for the future. Let's do the things that we need to do correctly. So greatly appreciate the comments, but on the flip side of it, we feel we're not going to go anywhere. So we're here looking for concept approval tonight as it sits.
A couple, it wouldn't be concept approval tonight. Tonight's the first hearing, so it's a pre-hearing conference.
Pre-hearing.
But also, is this in a TIF district? And does CDA need to review this?
It is not in a redevelopment district.
Thank you.
I checked that.
Okay. Brian?
Did you have anything else? Beyond?
No.
All right. Although I appreciate my colleagues' comments, I believe this is a tremendously good fit for this site. And some of the same reasons of why it's been indicated why it isn't a good spot. It is the gateway.
Mm-hmm.
It does have the amount of volume of traffic and our two major thoroughfares. And probably you could count the Beltline as the third major thoroughfare off the edge there. I think the layout of the site is overall a positive layout. The current orientation of the pumps, I agree, is why I don't stop.
Correct.
There. Specifically,
Yes.
your current access and current layout
It's terrible.
is why I avoid this gas station and convenience store. There are many reasons of the expansion around the convenience store aspect where I think it is a good fit with supporting some of the residents in the area as well as folks that are coming through our area. A few other pieces that I wanted to note. One had to do with the lighting on the building. If there was a way to tie into either street corridor and look at shepherd hooks, much similar that we have in some of the other buildings in the nearby area. I had a question about the access point to Roselawn. In your presentation, it didn't indicate at all the purpose or I understand that exists right now. I get it. Because Roselawn past the condominiums is a very residential area, I would hate to see that thoroughfare become the shortcut out or the shortcut in. And so I have concern about how that access point to Roselawn works with the site flow. So I would encourage you guys to think about how that fits into the plan and what we do to minimize the potential concerns regarding that and highlight the strengths of that piece of it. I think someone already mentioned the issue about some of the efforts put into the noise and aesthetic piece around the car wash to the neighbor on the north. And I think the neighbor on the east that you indicated, that's a shared wall right now. I'm not sure, I can't remember on the back of that building if it has windows on the back or if that shared wall goes all the way up.
There are some windows way up.
On the back? On both sides, both elevations?
Just on
in
the
the
back.
back?
There's a shared wall, and then I believe a patio, and then there's some windows further up.
Okay.
Quite
So maybe that's some homework I
quite
can
a
do as
far
well
ways.
before next time. Yeah, so some photos of that site might be helpful about how that ties in with the site. The roof pitches, I agree with Griff that although I'd like to see the pitches consistent across, with the tower and the car wash having the pitch roofs and the variation, I think it actually fits in quite well, and I'm okay with the pitches as they are. The pedestrian access that Sonny talked about from Broadway, I'd like to see some type of access. I understand why it's not there right now. It would either impact the green space coming in from that side to get pedestrians out of the pump aisles, and bring people up through the landscaped area and then across over to the store. If we don't give them a place to access from that side, we all know what happens. They will just walk through the pumps. So from a safety standpoint, I would encourage you to relook at how that is matching up. Currently with the bike rack where it is positioned, it's either encouraging folks to go through the drive aisle or use the crosswalk in and then use the sidewalk close to the building. So some considerations on what's going to be best for that use. I think that may be all the pieces. Let me do once through here, be sure. That was it.
Okay, thank you.
Could you put up the south elevation, please? Oh, no. Looking south, so it'd be the north side of the building.
The other
If
side.
if I'm looking south, it'd be the north side of the building, right? Sorry.
North elevation.
North elevation. Thanks. So where would the trash container go?
We actually have I'm going to flip the new landscape plan back up. I apologize for this. This is the new plan. You can see we have a landscape island that hides the car wash even more, and then here is the dumpster enclosure and any sort of mechanical issues that were not on any roof screen. So that is the new placement right there. This is the extension of the car wash. So we have a mechanical / dumpster enclosure screen
So
right there.
where would your service would come in off Monona Drive? They'd pull out and then there'd be rollouts? Is that how?
Rollouts, correct.
And then they would exit onto Femrite.
Roselawn.
Roselawn.
Or Roselawn.
Or Roselawn, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then you'll have materials and screening and all that good stuff
Correct.
for us later. Is the proposed sign in the DOT right-of-way now? I mean, as proposed?
No.
Does the DOT still govern it if it's not in there? And I guess, is that a question for you?
I don't think so.
So if it's moved back, it's no longer, the DOT can't control it. So your variable
Correct.
message sign could be an option.
Correct.
And when we did Meritor, they wanted to do something that would be tie in with the, like you've looked at there, with the stone that we've got and I think they did a very nice job. It's still, it falls within our guidelines, and I think we've even increased our guidelines from 5 to 6 foot since then, if I recall. Or is that a
Only
proposal?
conceptually, we haven't approved it in a sign code revision.
Take that back. But anyway, if you're looking at redoing this because it doesn't meet the guidelines, look at Meritor, and if they were consistent, I think from a city perspective, that would be a positive thing.
Just a clarification question. So with Meritor, I believe it does meet the 5 foot height requirement, but it shares its half city sign, half business sign.
So they got a bigger, go ahead.
I think they still meet all of the square footage requirements, but I think one thing's for sure is the height does not exceed the minimum requirements.
Okay.
So for this sign, I'd like the plan commission's feedback on whether the entire thing could not be this tall, or if just the business part of the sign would need to meet the requirements and the rest would be considered a decorative element like our sales.
It is really important that the message part, you large it, because it's at that intersection, and we always worry about that. That needs to be large enough so that it's safe, you can read it from a distance. And if you're going to do that, proportionally, you may need to make the sign a little bigger, so it's consistent. I mean, that's my view of the world. And I miss that sign, quite frankly, that's down there, and I get crabby at DOT all the time because we didn't ask permission, and so they wouldn't forgive us, and Fitchburg ratted on us. And
The issue to grapple with is really the height and whether we can allow another business, a business, to have a taller than 5-foot sign.
Would it help if the PDQ was not on that sign and I did a monument sign for the PDQ with their gas at the Monona Drive entrance? And then that sign becomes your City of Monona visual sign. And then the question would be, do you have the right to do what your own ordinance, if it's your own sign, if we dedicated that chunk of land for you?
That you've hit on a sore spot for me. I don't want to be hypocritical that we hold our businesses and our residents to a different standard than we hold the city. So I got a problem with being
but
a
if it's a
hypocrite.
feature, if it's an
Like
architectural
the sales,
feature,
we have sales that
Yes.
are much taller. That's an architectural feature. Then
what about the entrance? How big are the entrance signs?
We have 3 welcome to Monona signs on Monona Drive. I can't fathom why we would need a 4th. Between the sales and the stone walls on either side of Monona Drive, I just can't, and I said this before when we were discussing it, the problem we were having, I was like, just take it down and forget about it. I don't understand why we would have the 4th welcome to Monona sign within hundreds of feet of each other.
It's the reader board.
It was of such poor quality that the digital display on that reader board made it very difficult for an old man like me to even read when I was driving by it.
true.
Jim?
Yes, ma'am.
I have another question, and I'm assuming since Chris was involved with this, and this is not an objection, this is just a concern. It's about the ingress and the egress points and the best points for those access points. I assume you're going to get a lot more business, double your business down there, which is going to make that intersection really tricky.
You're talking about the curb cut on Monona Drive?
Mm-hmm.
It was designed, sorry about that. The curb cut on Monona Drive was designed back far enough from the intersection with that type of traffic. It was actually designed to have 2 exit lanes, 1 left-hand turn and 1 right-hand turn. It's the first left-hand turn back onto Monona Drive and 1 entry point. So it's actually was designed to be a little wider and designed, once the traffic volume got up there, to have a mountable median separating the exit lanes and the entry lanes. That was your question?
Well, I just want to make sure that, I
Yes, and Tom Lynch from Strand was the one that would have done the engineering on it.
okay.
Any further comments for the applicants? Anything that you wanted to hear outside of approval, because it's a pre-hearing conference, you're not getting
No, I just
that.
want to make sure
Any
Mr.
other-
Dale will continue being our customer. Let's hear it go forward. Likes the donuts.
Anything you wanted to get tonight that hasn't been discussed, or feedback that you still need?
Not really. I mean, we're excited. We've been excited to be in Monona forever, and we're excited to change the corner and make it something unique for long term.
Thank you. See you in a few weeks. Appreciate it. We'll move back to 5A, which is Plan Commission Review and Recommendation to City Council of Recodification Summary by General Code regarding land use legislation sections of the Monona Municipal Code of Ordinances, revisions to zoning code 13180, single family resident district regarding overhang allowances. Sonia.
I thought we were done with this, but there's just one more section. Just to note, everything else that the Plan Commission has reviewed thus far on the recodification project has gone to City Council. The grading standards, impervious standards, short-term rental decision, and the historic conservation ordinance were all okayed by the council on Monday. They haven't taken a formal vote on it yet until they get the entire book from all the city codes. But there was not a whole ton of discussion or any disagreement. So these two that are on the agenda tonight are minor things that have come up since we last met in October. The first one is a suggestion from myself and the building inspector. It's an issue that we deal with frequently when we get variance applications at Zoning Board of Appeals, and it causes a lot of confusion amongst builders and the applicants. So what is proposed is that our ordinance allow a permitted encroachment into side yard setbacks and street yard and rear yard for like a single family home for a roof overhang of up to 2.5 feet. Currently, we interpret our ordinance that a roof overhang has to be within the 7-foot side yard setback. Looking at other communities, we reviewed Middleton, Fitchburg, Verona, McFarland, Sun Prairie, and Stoughton. They all allow a 2.5 to 3 foot encroachment for overhangs. And the other part of this is potentially also allowing an encroachment for an uncovered stoop or set of stairs at the front of a house that's less than 3 feet in height, as long as it's necessary for access to a permitted building. We deal with that a lot too, and could potentially be considered a minor variance at Zoning Board of Appeals. This would eliminate an applicant from going to ZBA. And I think the issue is whether it's consistent with the spirit and intent of the zoning code for purposes like a side yard setback separates houses to allow for space and privacy and ventilation and things between the houses, and also for access for emergency vehicles. So would this still meet the intent of those things? I think it might. So that's the first one. We can discuss that, or should I cover the second one?
Go ahead, cover the second one too, which is revisions to zoning code 13.1 and 182.
This was brought to my attention by Mary O'Connor after we were finished discussing the grading and impervious surface changes, and she asked if someone wants to come to Plan Commission for that exception of up to 8 feet of a grade change, for example, will the residents be notified? And I went back and double checked that section of the code, and I thought it was really messy and unclear, and I included the current section in there. So it's your last page of this memo. And under B, it said that you should notify residents, and then under C, section C, and then under D, the language was really weird, and it said the commission shall cause the zoning administrator to notify such property owners that the commission might reasonably anticipate to be interested in the application. And that's just not even consistent with what we do in practice. We always, for pre-hearing conference and formal action, mail notices to property owners around. So I changed that language, and it would apply to anything that came for Plan Commission for grading and impervious surface. So those are the changes there.
We'll take the first item regarding the 2.5 foot encroachment and the encroachment for the stoops. Comments, questions? Mr. Homburg?
Well, I think we've been interpreting the overhangs wrong. I know previously, years and years ago, we never included overhangs into the setbacks on homes, and I don't know any communities that do, and the proof is really in our ordinance on our accessory buildings, where we actually even talk about how much the overhang can encroach, that we didn't want, since it was so close, we didn't want that to encroach more than a foot into the setback. But most of the buildings I've ever been associated with, there's some leeway for those overhangs. So we're really just defining it can't be over 2.5 feet. I think it's a good modification of our ordinance.
What about this? Anybody else on that comment? Brian, and then Griff?
With regards to that, when the mention about the accessory buildings, it's currently strikes the third of it into the overhang. So if the setback is 3 for accessory buildings, would we then be saying that we're okay going 2.5 feet?
No, not at all. I think that should stay. I think that's prudent. You don't want an overhang going right to the neighbor's property line. That was the reason we actually put that in years ago.
And I agree with those changes. The changes for the principal building of the not counting it going in and up to the 2.5 and unstriking the stricken language for accessory buildings.
Griff?
I thought with Chris, I never thought we did count the overhang as part of the encroachment on the side yard. Where does the 2.5 feet come from? I mean, there are a number of overhangs that are larger than that.
Well, to the first point, the interpretation is based on a city attorney opinion from about 10 years ago that we've been using and that the building inspector's been applying. And the reason that he interpreted it in that way was because the overhangs were called out with some sort of allowance in the accessory structure, but not in the principal structure. And so he thought by way of omission that they needed to fall within the setback area. So that's the way it's been interpreted for right or for wrong. The 2.5 feet, someone else could probably speak to this better than I could, but a lot of the ones that I've seen lately have 2-foot overhangs. So the 2.5 feet would allow for that, and it would be consistent with most of those other communities that I looked at.
Chris?
I know where you're going, Ruth. There are larger overhangs, but then I think if you have a much larger overhang, I think you have to give a little respect to your neighbor, not having that overhang going too close to their property. And I would agree, 2 foot, 1 foot's a lot of building anymore. 2 foot is a nice overhang. To go beyond that, then I think you should start be looking to your borders and say, do you want someone's, just like the accessory building, how far will you let them encroach into there? And if 7 foot's our minimum and we allow 2.5, we're pretty close to that 3-to-1 again.
Check out the eavesdrop.
I don't know. Does the building inspector count the eavesdrop?
But that adds more, and then if you have
So-
2 houses, they get 2.5.
So are you supportive, Mr. Homburg, of 2.5?
I think it's fine. I don't know which way I'd move it.
Any further discussion?
Green design standards are encouraging overhang upwards of 3 feet for whatever that's worth.
So
Everybody's interested.
would that be something that would have to go before zoning board then? Or would you want to?
Move your house over, for God's sakes.
Okay. So, no further discussion on the first item, which is there a motion for that, for approval? And were there any conditions on that?
Yeah, we were going to get rid of the strikeout on the accessory building.
Is that what you had, all right, is there a second to do that?
Second.
So we're approving it, but we're not striking out the side yard and rear yard.
On the
language.
accessory structures.
On the accessory structure, okay. Further discussion?
Is
None?
this-
Brian?
Oh, sorry. Is this including the stoop issue or not?
No.
Yes.
Yes. She said yes.
All right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to 2. Is there a discussion? If not, is there a motion?
Good.
Oh, Mr. Homburg, sorry.
I agree with staff. We've always handled it that way, and I can't imagine where we do something like this and not send out a notice to people within 200 feet. I think that's
Yeah.
just,
Just need to clean it up.
yeah, I think it's a good catch.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, is there a motion? Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Okay. Keep strike out. All right, moving on to 7, reports of staff and commission members. Staff report regarding status of development projects. Sonia, want to take us through?
This is the last meeting of the year. Our next meeting is scheduled for January 9th, and tentative applications include the approval of the Taco Bell alterations. We've seen that once to their architecture, and they've already submitted plans. They're on the city website if you want to look at them. And we'll review zoning permit for site plan alterations to the library and city hall parking lots. They're going to be reconstructing both of those. And we'll have the Broadway car wash sign, possibly PDQ. So those are the applications.
Thank you. B, Plan Commission request for information. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you all for a long night. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.